to my extra video. This is my work in progress reveal, which basically means I'm going to come clean and show you all of the works in progress that I have languishing in boxes and bags in my wardrobe that I use for storing all my knitting and crochet things. So I'm in my bedroom. It is a very sunny day. I've pulled the curtain over to stop me being blinded, and behind me we've got a fireplace in our bedroom. It's quite it's all inherited. We moved into our house about 2 years ago, and we're slowly going through it, doing it as we want it. So but I like the fireplace. I don't know, it's black. I might paint it white, but it's only a little fireplace, so it is a working fireplace, but obviously not really one for having an open fire. We've got a log burner downstairs. Sorry, let me just adjust you slightly. You're a bit wonky. Well, now you're even more wonky. Hang on a second. Should have done this before I started. Yeah, so we'll maybe get it all closed off so little spidders can't get down and nibble our toes. Oh, that's a good rambly start. So I was going to show you some of the works in progress that I've got. Now, I have gone through all of these, so I have organised them, and I have started a chart in my bullet journal to help me work through them throughout the year. So by the end of the year, I won't have any languishing projects. And I'm going to show you the projects that I'm working on, and most of these are ancient or long term. So by ancient I mean I started them a long time ago. I'm talking years, and haven't got around to finishing them. And by long term I mean they are things that are not going to be finished quickly, like blankets, etc. So let's start with one of the long term projects, which is a work in progress. I started about 3 years ago to make a hexagon blanket. Now I started making these little hexagons. The cream is coming out true to colour, but the bright hot pink is kind of blowing out the camera a little bit. It is a very kind of warm deep pink, and it's coming out a lot cooler on camera. And I started making these hexagons. So I've got a little stack of them. I can't remember what pattern I was using though, because it was 3 years ago, so I'm going to have to look at what I've done. And well, there's one of the centre ones, so that'll give me a clue, and work out what to do. Now I don't know what this yarn is. It was given to me by my mother-in-law's mother-in-law, who was getting rid of a load of old wool. So she gave me a load of this stuff, which is all in little cakes, and I've got lots. All in this bag, and she gave me a ton of this stuff, which is blowing the camera out completely because it is a very, very bright pink. Now I was a bit see, I've got loads. So I was a bit concerned about this yarn because the pink in particular, even in its cakes that it's in, I can see is, I don't know, slightly pilling. But they're both very soft yarns, and I was a bit worried about how it would wear as a blanket. So I took this one and I put it in hot water, and then I put it in cold water and hot water and cold water, and then I roughed it up as much as I could, and then I dried it on the radiator. And apart from looking a lot cleaner than it was, it hasn't changed. It hasn't felted, it hasn't done anything untowards. It hasn't pilled. So whatever this yarn is hardy. So I'm therefore happy to continue with this as a long-term project. It's crochet hexagons. It will be a blanket, and it will be a blanket for the car. It's for those winter morning trips to the swimming pool with the girls, or when we go on holiday. It is going to be a car blanket. So I'm going to work on that this year. It is in my bullet journal as something to work on. I don't know if I'll complete it. I would like to, because I don't want to take this into a 5th year, because this will be the 4th year, and I don't want to take it into a 5th year. So I'm just adjusting because my back is hurting a little bit. So right, there we go. So that is my first long-term project. I have another long-term project. Actually, I've got 2 more long-term projects. One is the square blanket, and one is the ugly blanket. So I'm going to show you the square blanket first. Every time I started this probably about 3 years ago, when I was mainly knitting with DK acrylic yarn, which I still do knit with, I still do crochet with, but I have moved to more natural yarns now, and tend to buy things in 4-ply, which I find works well for the shawls and the wraps and the socks and things that I crochet and knit. So this blanket was with all the leftovers that I had. Sometimes I had enough leftovers to make a few little 2 round granny squares. This looks like the same yarn as before, but it's not. So just like little 2 round granny squares. And whenever I finished a project, no matter what it was, if I had enough yarn in whatever colour, I made a 2 round granny square. And actually some of them are worsted weight and some of them are DK weight. So this little bag here is full of 2 round granny squares that I have quickly made. Sometimes I make 4 or 5 in the same colour. For example, I obviously had quite a bit of this royal blue, so I've got 4 there, and I can see I've got more of the royal blue left. And I've got a huge mishmash of colours. And then I've got a big ball of acrylic white, and I do a 3rd round, and I spike the centre ones down to the previous round before. So I do a normal 3rd granny square round, but when I get to the side pieces, instead of working into the chain space, I work into the middle stitch of the cluster on the 1st round. And then I've done 2 rows of single crochet, which is in UK terms double crochet, around the edge. Okay, so, and I've done that with all of them. So not only have I got a bag full of 2 round granny squares, but I've got these plus another one full of completed squares in every possible colour you can imagine. So I've got pink, light pink, yellow, I've got a kind of orangey pink, teal, beige, and I've got every colour in the rainbow. So I must have now of these squares probably about 100, and my intention is to make 2 blankets, one for each of my girls in a sort of single bed size. But if I'm going to do that, I mean, yes, I've made excellent headway in starting it, but if I'm going to actually complete these blankets, I'm going to have to continue with it, and you know, I can't just leave it languishing in a bag for the next 5 years or until they go to university. I need to actually work on them. So that is another long-term project. So I've got these ones all completed, so now I need to transform these squares into these, and I've got a whole little bag full of scrap yarn, leftover yarn. It's all DK, it's all acrylic to add to it as well. So I think what I need to do is work out how many squares I need and then make a plan for completing them. Yeah, so that's my other long-term project. And top of that, in my box of works in progress, I have things that I started and just haven't ever got round to finishing. So one of them is something I was just making up. It's a crochet project. Most of, I think all actually, of my works in progress that are languishing are crochet. So many moons ago, I had an image in my head of something I wanted to make, and I started to make it out of crochet and Payton's Smoothie yarn, which is quite a splitty yarn, but very shiny and really nice to work with and very soft. Actually, it's a bit of a pain to work with because it's splitty, but it's also nice to work with because it's soft and it gives a really nice fabric. So as you can see, that says hug, and my intention was to knit it till about there, maybe a little bit further, and then I'm going to create little ear shapes, and it's going to have eyes and it's going to have arms. I don't think it's going to have feet. It's got a kind of boxed bottom that I've done, which I will probably weight down with like toy, you know, the beans that you put in toy bottoms, or just some lentils or something. And it's going to be a hug that you can give to someone. So it's a hug, you give it to them. And it was an idea I came up with ages ago, but I've never finished it. And again, I'm talking years ago. So it's just sat in a bag, and all it needs to happen is for it to be finished and then gifted to someone. So that's another project. Another one that I've got is, I've already got one of these completed, but it's a cactus, a crochet cactus. It was a pattern from Inside Crochet magazine. I bought the little tub from Hobbycraft, and I've made the cactus, and all it needs is for the felt to be stuffed and the cactus to be attached, and then maybe put a little cactus flower on it. I mean, that's not hard, is it? Yet it's been sitting in this box for about 2 years, which is disgraceful. So that is also on my list as something to be completed by the end of the year. It will not languish anymore. That said, I've spent all this week planning all the new things that I'm casting on and hooking up, and this box of works in progress will be completed by the end of 2017. Okay, so that's the things in that box. Oh, then I've got this other thing which I can't remember. So it is, it looks like I was trying to make some kind of creature. It's from a cotton green yarn, and it's kind of got a, it's like a, looks like the sort of head of a frog or something, doesn't it? So I've obviously made that for a reason, and it was going to be attached to a body. I've got this amount of yarn left. So, yeah, I don't think it would be fair that this doesn't become a creature with personality. So I just need to, I'll have a flick through some of my old notebooks, see if I made some sketches of what I wanted it to become. I don't have any around up here. And then that will be also completed and probably gifted to one of my girls. Okay, and then I've also got, now, years and years and years ago, I used to blog as Snip Snap Happy, and I started working my way through the Happy Hooker book, all the patterns in there backwards. Why not? I did quite well with it, but then I think it was around the time I got sick that I stopped and I lost momentum. Anyway, I was halfway through making these, I think they're called the driving mitts or driving wrist warmers. I'll put a thing on the screen as to what pattern they are and who it's by. And they're they're crocheted flat out of a 4-ply black yarn, and this is, I think this is a cotton acrylic blend, and it's very drapey. It's really nice. Can't remember what the yarn is. So I got this far. I've got no idea where I am in the pattern, so what I'm going to have to do is go back to the pattern and work out where I am in it, and then just pick it up and finish it. I'm so close to actually having this finished. It's ridiculous that I stopped. So, and actually that would be good, because if you saw my last podcast, I mentioned I'm going to be doing the basket of mittens year-long cow. So that would be something that I could put into it. So I might actually keep that one out to work on in the coming weeks. Look at that progress. So if I keep shifting about, I'm sitting on the floor and I have to keep moving because it keeps hurting my back. Right, so let's shove all those back in there. I've purposely given myself quite a small box so that I can't add to it. Right. Okay, so the next long-term work in progress that I have is the ugly blanket. Sorry, got things popping up on my screen telling me I'm running out of battery. Is the ugly blanket. Now, I don't call this the ugly blanket for nothing. It is ugly. So this started off, again, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. I would knit up my leftovers into the 2 round granny squares to go into the granny square blankets that I'm making. Anything that had not got enough yarn for 2 rounds of granny square went into the ugly blanket. Anything where I was never going to use that yarn again, like for example maybe that royal blue, and I'd already made, say, you know, quite a few squares for the granny square blankets, and I didn't want to make any more in that colour, the remainder of that would go into this. And this was regardless of colour, order or weight. So this blanket is full of every different colour you can imagine, and possibly every different weight you can imagine. Particularly in the middle, you can probably see that there is some DK mixed with some very, very chunky yarn, which all adds to the ugliness. There was a point when I was putting in the most minuscule of scraps, that there's one cluster in yellow there. But I stopped doing that just because as I've crocheted things over the years, I've discovered that the more tiny things like that, where there's opportunity for where you've got to knot it in and you've got to ravel in the ends, the more opportunity it is, you know, for holes to appear later on. So I'm trying to not do really, really tiny bits like that, and try to you know, at least have a good, you know, 4 or 5 clusters worth of yarn before it goes into the ugly blanket. And this just keeps growing. Pretty soon it will be big enough to throw out into general use around the house. Now my kids love all the blankets, and there are a few blankets that are midway through being finished, but they get used anyway. I just tie off the ends, they get thrown out, they get used, and then when I need to add something to it, I do. I do tend to weave in ends as I go along, but obviously I decided recently that I haven't. Look at all those. It's a good job. I quite like weaving in ends. Most of these are because I tie the yarn together to make one big ball of yarn. I think I've got, look, here's my bag of yarn for the ugly blanket, and this is, I've got quite a big thing here. Let me show you. I've got a big thing that I'm just not going to use for anything ever. It's kind of crinkly and acrylic, and just not a colour that I would use, so I just figured that I'll do a couple of rounds on the old ugly blanket. I've also got just some green, and then these are all scraps, and I've just tied them together to make an ugly ball of yarn. So that's all kept there, and then that would be something good for like a car journey or something, because, you know, working a granny square is just easy peasy. You don't have to think about it. And the really good thing about this is it does throw up colour combinations sometimes, which I wouldn't have ever put together. And then I suddenly find myself looking at like purple and sparkle and grey, and then beige and green, and you get these colour combinations where you think, oh, I love that colour combination. I'm going to add that to, you know, a future project. I'm going to remember that those colours work together. I've got like some festive colours there, and yeah, it's really nice. And like I said, I've been working on that for a good few years. It's actually been languishing for quite some time. For the last, well, probably for the last year, I haven't looked at it, just because I discovered knitting, and I've kind of fallen into a knitting rabbit hole, as they say. So I've been really concentrating on learning the techniques I want to learn, and learning all the new things about that. So my background projects have kind of fallen to the wayside a little bit. But this is the year they're going to be worked on, she says, whilst thinking about the next new thing. have I got anything else? I've got a box of yarn. Oh, here's a, this is just yarn that is waiting for various projects. It's usable yarn, but what it's going to be used for, I don't know. I've got this stuff. I think it's called pom-pom yarn. It's polyester. But what do you make with that? I don't know why I've got it. I think I was going to use it for a border once and then never did. Have you used that before? Let me know if you have. And then I've just found a notebook, so I'm just trying to see if this might reveal any sketches for what that green thing was. I wonder, do you know I said it looked like a frog? I wonder if it might be that. Possibly. Don't know if I've got enough yarn to do that. I've also got this. Look. I'm going to take it out of the bag. This is the first yarn I ever had to try crochet with. And I've still got somewhere, and it might even be in here. Let's have a look. I taught myself to crochet on the train, and when I wasn't very well some years ago, and I taught myself using the Happy Hooker book, and I did my first swatch, and it said after you finish your first little swatch of practice stitches, you know, cut the end, weave in the ends, and you know, keep it forever. This will always be the first piece of crochet you did. And I did keep it, and this was my first piece of crochet that I ever did. And it said put it in your handbag and use it to clean your glasses, so I've always kept it. And it was just with a very simple DK weight variegated yarn, which I still have some left of, which is this. I mean, Lord knows what it's called, but it's very nice. It's very sunny and very yellow and very bright. And I did at one point start to, because I got given this book for a birthday, 500 crochet blocks for blankets, throws and afghans by Jan Eaton, and I started to make some motifs from this book using this yarn as a sort of contrast colour. So I made this one, and I made this one, this one, this one, and that one. So yeah, I might maybe continue with that and make a small blanket, because I've got plenty of this left, and the other colour in this is just a basic acrylic white, so it's inexpensive, and these are quite big squares, so you wouldn't need many of them to make a kind of just a little decorative blanket. Again, possibly might be nice for the car, or just for fun, just to use the yarn in an interesting way and to practice some interesting techniques by making these blocks. So that's what I'll probably do with that, but that's not a work in progress, that's just a plan for that yarn. I also, my sister gave me, I've just spotted it, this pattern many moons ago, which is for an amigurumi nativity, which I've never made. So yeah, that might be something I have to do. I like making little amigurumi things, but sometimes the process is, especially for like little things like that, where you've got like things with beards and headscarves and, you know, hands and cuffs, and they're holding things, it can be quite fiddly and it can get a little bit tedious, and I really have to be in the right frame of mind and the right mood. But one day might be a nice surprise for her on Christmas if she gets her own crochet nativity. I mean, she crochets too, so she could make herself one, but I don't think that's the point, is it? And then also I have this pattern. The only clue I have on it is it's by Trisaldi Crafts, and that is it. There is no title. and it doesn't tell you what yarn to use, and I don't know what it's for. From looking at it, it looks like it is a shawl of some kind, but I've no idea what shawl it is because there's no information. I've obviously printed this pattern at some point and didn't print the front page, or I've lost the front page and I have no recollection. So I can't bring myself to just throw it away and not know what it is. So I think I might actually just follow this pattern in a random like yarn that I've got that I'm not going to use for another project and see what it is. It'll be a mystery crochet blanket. So yeah, I might do that this year and just see what it is. So many plans, so little time. Yeah, so that's it. That is my, I don't think I've missed anything. That is my, that is my work in progress reveal. I just spotted this bag. I'll tell you what's in here. My hop socks. This is crochet, oh, that's coming up really dark. Sorry, the light's really bad because it's so sunny to my side. I'll try and move a bit. Yeah, these are crochet hop socks. They're very beautiful and the yarn is very nice. It is sheep's yarn and it is a sock yarn. I think it, yeah, 75-25 wool and polyamide. But it's not comfortable, it's hard to get on, it doesn't have movement in the fabric, it's tight, it's inflexible. I had started to make the next one, and this whole section here, this ribbed section which forms this top bit, is incredibly tedious. I mean, there's quite a lot of ribbing that go. I mean, the advantage is you do the ribbing, you fold it down, you pick up stitches along the bottom edge, and then you're straight into the sock. But it is tedious, and I'm not sure it's worth it for what you get at the end. So I might frog this, which is going to be painful because this was quite a lot of work. Although, yeah, you can see how nicely constructed it is for a crochet sock. But I think it's going to get frogged, and I'm going to use the yarn for something else. It will be for my daughter Lilia. Oh, I'll tell you what else I've got, which I've neglected to mention, which is another long-term work in progress. Sorry, moving on from the hop socks, is my Cozy Memories blanket. So my plan this year, I've actually done a chart in my bullet journal, is to do at least 50 squares for my Cozy Memories blanket. This is a pattern by Lorraine Pugh Designs, and it's like a crochet version of the Knitter's Cozy Memories blanket. They're crochet mitered squares using, is it called moss stitch? Is it moss stitch? I can't remember. I haven't got the pattern in front of me. So you create these little mitered squares, and I've decided to do mine using sock yarn left over from sock projects and any minis that I get throughout the year, and make a real blanket of memories. And it's really nice and soft and floppy. The way it's crocheted makes it nice and floppy, which is nice for nice unusual for crochet. I've got a very green and blue start to my blanket, just because my first couple of pairs of socks were made using yarn that had quite a lot of blue and green in. But I do have some little bits here. I've got some red colour left over from my Highland Peak shawl, and I've got enough left over from my Strictly socks. Yeah, so, and I know I've got some more downstairs left over from the Lucifer socks that I made for my husband. Yeah, so those are still, that's going to be a long-term project as well, for throughout this year. I want to get 50 squares done. I don't think that's going to make a blanket, but at least I will be on my way. It's not intended to be a quick project, it's something I'll be working on for a long time. Okay, so that is my work in progress reveal. So now that I've shown you, I have to hold myself to my promise to myself that I will get those sorted and out of the way and no longer languishing in a box by the end of 2017. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.